Everything you've been taught about success is a lie that's quietly killing what God put inside you. I know that sounds harsh, maybe even offensive. You worked hard for that promotion. You sacrificed to build that business. You earned that degree, that home, that reputation. And now someone is suggesting your biggest achievement might be your worst enemy? But here's what Myles Munroe discovered that changed everything. Success is one of the most dangerous threats to your God-given potential. Not failure, not poverty, not lack of opportunity. Success itself. Think about it. When was the last time you took a major risk after you made it? When did you last step completely out of your comfort zone after achieving stability? When did you last pursue something that could cost you everything you've built? Exactly. Munroe spent decades studying a terrifying pattern. The wealthiest place on earth isn't Wall Street or Silicon Valley. It's the cemetery. Buried there are businesses never started, books never written, inventions never created, ministries never launched. All because people achieved enough success to stop reaching for the fullness of their purpose. You're driving a car designed for 180 miles per hour at a comfortable 55, and you think you're winning because you're moving forward. But God is asking, where's the rest of what I put in you? The truth no one tells you? Your comfort zone is a graveyard for divine assignments. I understand the tension you're feeling right now. You're not ungrateful for your blessings. You're not lazy. You've achieved things others dream about. But there's this gnawing sense that there's more, something you can't quite name, a restlessness your success can't satisfy. That restlessness is God. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why Munroe believed that 90% of your potential is still dormant, what success does to sabotage purpose, and how to break free from achievement's golden cage before you die with your greatest gift still inside you. If you want to discover more about unlocking your God-given potential and living the kingdom life you were created for, subscribe to this channel where we explore the teachings of great servant of God like Myles Munroe, who refused to let comfort steal destiny. Let me show you something that will shift how you see everything you've accomplished. Myles Munroe was obsessed with a question that haunted him. Why do most people die without ever becoming who God created them to be? Not people who failed, people who succeeded, respected professionals, comfortable retirees, church-going believers with nice homes and retirement accounts. He discovered the answer in the most unexpected place. Genesis 1. Notice this carefully. Before God created anything, He established its purpose first. Before the sun existed, God determined it would govern the day. Before trees grew, God decided they would bear fruit. Purpose preceded creation. Always. Now here's where it gets revolutionary. That means your purpose existed before you did. God didn't create you and then figure out what to do with you. He had an assignment, then formed you specifically to fulfill it. You are the answer to a problem that existed before your birth. But here's the trap that success sets. When you achieve something significant, that career milestone, that financial stability, that social status, your brain says, this must be it. This must be what I was born for. And you stop searching. Munroe called this mistaking the vehicle for the destination. Your job might be the vehicle God is using to position you, but it's not the ultimate purpose. Your business might be financing your destiny, but it's not the destiny itself. Your current success might be God's training ground, not His finish line. Think about it like this. Imagine you buy a smartphone with incredible capacity, top processor, amazing camera, unlimited potential, but you only use it to make phone calls. It works. You're successful at making calls, but you're using maybe 10% of what's actually in your hand. That's what Munroe saw everywhere. People successfully using a fraction of their divine design, completely unaware of the 90% lying dormant. And here's what makes success so dangerous. It feels good enough. Failure makes you search. Desperation makes you pray. Crisis makes you seek God's face. But success? Success whispers, you've arrived. Rest now. Enjoy what you've built. I've seen this destroy more destinies than any failure ever could. The businessman who built a comfortable company, but never launched the movement God put in him. The professional who mastered her field, but never wrote the book that would have transformed a generation. the pastor who built a stable church, but never pioneered the ministry model that was burning in his spirit. All successful, all comfortable, all dying with their greatest gifts undelivered. Munroe grew up in poverty in the Bahamas. 11 siblings, extreme lack, no advantages. He could have celebrated his escape from poverty as total success. But he recognized something crucial. God didn't rescue him from poverty just so he could be personally comfortable. God rescued him from poverty so he could help millions discover their purpose. See the difference? Personal success versus divine assignment. Your success isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. And if you're not careful, the comfort of incomplete success will convince you to stop reaching for complete purpose. You know what terrified Munroe most about his research? He calculated that the average person dies with approximately 90% of their potential untapped. Not 90% of their dreams. Not 90% of their wishes. 90% of the actual capacity God manufactured into their design. Let me put that in perspective for you. If you're driving at 55 miles per hour in a car built for 180, you're operating at about 30% capacity, comfortable, smooth, safe, and completely underperforming what's under your hood. That's most people's entire lives. The scary part? You don't feel it. The car runs fine at 55. You're making progress. You're moving forward. Everyone around you driving at the same speed tells you you're doing great. But the engine was designed for so much more, and you'll never know it if you never push the accelerator. Munroe used to ask a devastating question in his seminars. What's in you that the world has never seen? Not what have you done. What's still in you? Businesses that could employ thousands. Solutions to social problems. Ministries that could reach unreached people. Inventions. Books. Movements. Reforms. All sitting inside successful people who achieved enough comfort to stop excavating their potential. Here's what the Bible reveals about this in Matthew 25. The parable of the talents. The servant who buried his one talent wasn't lazy. He was risk-averse. He was protecting what he had. He was playing it safe. And Jesus called him wicked for it. Why? Because unused capacity is an insult to the Creator who deposited it. Your unused gifts are not neutral. They're not just missed opportunities. According to Jesus, they're a form of wickedness. Not because you're evil, but because you're stewarding poorly what God entrusted to you. This is where Munroe's teaching cuts through American Christian culture like a sword. We build an entire theology around being blessed that has nothing to do with purpose and everything to do with personal comfort. We measure God's favor by our bank accounts, our health, our peaceful lives. But Munroe asked, what if God blessed you with resources not for your enjoyment, but for your assignment? What if God gave you health not so you can relax, but so you can run? What if God gave you influence not to be admired, but to be deployed? I need you to hear this carefully. Your success might be God's provision for your purpose, not God's replacement of your purpose. The wealth is not the point. It's a tool. The position is not the destination. It's the platform. The stability is not the goal. It's the launch pad. And if you confuse the tool for the assignment, you'll spend your life polishing what you should be using. Look at what happens when people discover this truth. Everything shifts. The executive realizes her corporate position isn't her purpose. It's her training ground for the nonprofit she's supposed to launch. The teacher recognizes his classroom isn't the finish line. It's preparation for the curriculum that will transform education systems. Suddenly, success stops being the destination and becomes a resource. Munroe often said, the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but life without purpose. And he'd add, the second greatest tragedy is achieving success that has nothing to do with your purpose. You can be successful and completely off course. You can be blessed and entirely miss your assignment. You can have everything the world calls winning and still fail at the one thing you were born to do. That restless feeling you can't shake, that sense that this can't be all there is, that's not ingratitude. That's not the enemy. That's God reminding you there's 90% of you that you haven't met yet. Now, let me show you exactly how success sabotages purpose, because this is where most people lose the battle without even realizing they're in one. Munroe identified 3 ways success becomes your worst enemy, and all 3 are operating in your life right now, whether you recognize them or not. First, success creates the illusion of arrival. When you achieve something significant, your mind naturally says, "I made it." That's human psychology. The problem? God never designed you to arrive until you're standing before Him, having fulfilled everything He put in you. But success tricks you into thinking, "This is it. This is what I was working toward." And you shift from building to maintaining, from pioneering to protecting, from faith to fear. I've watched this destroy more potential than failure ever could. The young couple who achieve financial stability and then spend the next 30 years protecting it instead of deploying it for kingdom impact. The leader who reaches a comfortable level of influence and then plays defense for the rest of his career instead of taking the risks that could multiply his impact. Success makes you ask the wrong question. Instead of "What else is God calling me to?" you ask, "How do I keep what I have?" And that subtle shift from offense to defense is the death of purpose. Second, success surrounds you with people invested in your staying exactly where you are. This is the one nobody talks about. When you're struggling, everyone encourages you to reach higher. But when you're successful, everyone wants you to stay put. Your family loves your stability. Your friends admire your position. Your church celebrates your achievements. And if you dare talk about leaving comfort to pursue something risky, something you can't quite explain but know God is calling you to, they'll think you're crazy. Why would you leave that job? Why would you risk that security? Why would you start over when you've already won? And the pressure to maintain other people's perception of your success becomes a prison. Munroe faced this constantly. People couldn't understand why he kept launching new initiatives when he already had a successful church and ministry. Why not just enjoy what you built? Because what he'd built was a platform for what he was supposed to build next. Purpose is progressive. It unfolds. It expands. It demands more of you as you mature. But success wants you to plateau. Third, success makes you allergic to the very things that produce purpose: risk, uncertainty, dependence on God. Here's the brutal truth. You discovered most of your current gifts during seasons of desperation, not seasons of comfort. You prayed most fervently when you had no other options. You heard God most clearly when you needed Him most desperately. But success gives you options. Success gives you control. Success gives you the illusion of independence from God. And slowly, so slowly you don't notice it happening, you stop taking risks that require faith. You stop pursuing things that demand you lean entirely on God. You stop stepping into situations where if God doesn't show up, you fail. And that's exactly where your undiscovered potential lives, in the territory that requires faith you haven't needed yet. In Hebrews 11, every single hero of faith was asked to do something that made no logical sense based on their current success. Abraham had to leave comfort. Moses had to abandon royal position. David had to face giants. All of them had to risk what they had to discover what they could become. But success screams at you, don't risk what you've built. Protect what you have. Play it safe. And playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can do to your purpose. If this truth is confronting something in your heart right now, hit like so more believers can discover what God is revealing about success and purpose. Let's help each other break free from achievement's golden cage together. Look, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow or blow up your life. I'm saying this: if your current success isn't serving your ultimate purpose, it's sabotaging it. If your achievements have made you comfortable enough to stop seeking God's full assignment for your life, your success has become your enemy. And the tragedy is, you won't realize it until you're standing at the end of your life, looking at everything you built and realizing you missed what you were born for. So how do you break free? How do you shift from being a successful person to being a purposeful person? Because there is a difference, and it changes everything. Munroe taught a framework that transformed how thousands of people viewed their achievements. He called it moving from success mentality to purpose mentality. And it starts with 3 critical shifts in how you see your life. Shift number 1. Redefine success as stewardship, not ownership. Everything you've achieved, your skills, your resources, your influence, your opportunities, none of it belongs to you. You are a steward, not an owner. God entrusted these things to you for a specific assignment. That completely changes how you use them. When you think you own your success, you protect it, polish it, display it, hoard it. When you realize you're stewarding it, you deploy it, invest it, multiply it, risk it for kingdom purposes. Think about Joseph in Genesis. He went from slave to prime minister of Egypt. Incredible success by any measure. But Joseph didn't view his position as personal achievement to enjoy. He recognized it as divine positioning for purpose, saving nations from famine. His success was never about him. It was about who God wanted to reach through him. Same with Daniel. Promoted to advisor kings, massive success. But he used that platform to represent God's kingdom in pagan systems. His success was his pulpit, not his paradise. You need to ask yourself a disturbing question that Munroe would ask his audiences. If God removed his hand, a blessing from your life, would anyone notice besides you? If your success only benefits you and your family, you're misunderstanding its purpose. God blessed you to be a blessing. He promoted you to promote his agenda. He gave you resources to resource his mission. Shift number 2, view your current position as preparation, not destination. This is huge. Most people see their achievements as finish lines. Munroe saw them as training grounds. Your current job is teaching you skills you'll need for your purpose. Your current struggles are developing character you'll need for your assignment. Your current success is building credibility you'll need for your mission. But if you think where you are is where you'll always be, you'll never prepare for where God is taking you. Munroe used to say, "Where you are is not who you are. Where you are is where you are, temporarily. Your address is not your identity. Your position is not your purpose. Your current chapter is not your whole story." This mindset keeps you teachable, hungry, growing. It prevents the stagnation that success breeds. I've watched people miss their purpose because they couldn't see beyond their current success. The business owner who couldn't imagine selling his company to launch the ministry God called him to. The professional who couldn't see past her career to the nonprofit burning in her heart. They were so attached to their current success that they couldn't release it for their future purpose. But here's what happens when you make this shift. You start seeing everything as preparation. That difficult boss, he's teaching you patience you'll need as a leader. That financial struggle, it's training you to trust God with resources. That betrayal, it's developing discernment you'll need to protect what God gives you next. Shift number 3, pursue problems, not just provision. This is the ultimate test of whether you've shifted from success thinking to purpose thinking. Success-minded people ask, how can I make more money? How can I get promoted? How can I be comfortable? Purpose-minded people ask, what problem keeps me up at night? What injustice makes me angry? What need can I uniquely meet? Munroe taught this relentlessly. Your purpose is connected to a problem. God created you as a solution to something specific. And until you identify that problem and attack it, you'll never fulfill your purpose, no matter how successful you become. He'd say, look at what makes you angry. Look at what breaks your heart. Look at what you can't stop thinking about. That's God showing you your assignment. For some of you, it's education reform. For others, it's poverty, or family restoration, or mental health, or biblical literacy, or entrepreneurship in marginalized communities. There's a problem out there with your name on it, and your success is meant to be the resource that helps you solve it. But if you're using your success just to build a comfortable life, you're hoarding what God gave you to deploy. Munroe wrote a book that became his life's anthem, Die Empty. The entire premise was this: don't go to your grave with your gift still inside you. And he didn't just teach it, he lived it. Even days before his tragic death in that plane crash, he was traveling, teaching, pouring out everything God put in him. He died empty, exhausted maybe, but empty. He used to paint a picture that haunted his audiences. The wealthiest place on earth is the cemetery. There lie businesses that were never started, inventions that were never created, books that were never written, songs that were never sung, problems that were never solved, because people died full of unrealized potential, full of unused gifts, full of undelivered solutions. And here's the question that should terrify every one of us. What will die with you? Not what have you done? What will die with you when you're gone? That book you know you're supposed to write. Will it die with you? That business that could employ hundreds. Will it die with you? That ministry that could reach the unreached. Will it die with you? That solution to the problem that keeps you up at night. Will it die with you? Because here's what Munroe understood that most people miss. You are not the beneficiary of your potential. The world is. Your gifts were not given to you for your enjoyment. They were deposited in you for humanity's benefit. And every day you don't excavate them, develop them, deploy them, you're robbing people who need what only you can give. There are people waiting for your book who will never read it if you don't write it. There are employees waiting for jobs in the business you'll never start. There are souls waiting to be reached by the ministry you'll never launch. There are problems waiting to be solved by the solution you'll never develop. And your success, your comfortable, respectable, achievement-filled success, is helping you ignore them. In Matthew 25, Jesus didn't just critique the servant who buried his talent. He removed what the servant had and gave it to someone else. Because unused capacity doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone who needed what you refused to use. Your wasted potential is not just your loss, it's humanity's loss. Munroe would get almost angry about this in his teachings, not condemning anger, prophetic anger, because he saw what was being lost. He saw the graveyard filling up with unrealized destinies, and he refused to let people waste their lives in comfortable mediocrity. He'd say, "Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting until you're ready. Stop waiting until it's convenient. You will never feel ready. You will never have perfect conditions. You will never reach a point where it's convenient to pursue your purpose. You pursue it anyway." And here's what breaks my heart. I've met countless people who know exactly what they're supposed to do. They can describe it in detail. They've felt the call. They've seen the vision. They've identified the problem. But their success has made them too comfortable to obey. They're afraid of losing what they have. They're afraid of looking foolish. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of what people will think. So they stay successful, respectable, comfortable, and completely disobedient. And every year they wait, the gap between who they are and who they could be grows wider. Munroe used to close his messages with a haunting image. Imagine standing before God at the end of your life, and he shows you the person you could have become, the lives you could have touched, the impact you could have made, and you realize you missed it, not because you failed, because you settled for success instead of pursuing purpose. That image should wreck every comfortable Christian in America. Your biggest success might be your worst enemy. Not because success is bad, but because it's powerful enough to make you think you've arrived when God is saying, "We're just getting started." The question is, will you let comfort kill what God deposited in you? Or will you spend the rest of your life excavating your potential until there's nothing left to give? We've walked through a truth that confronts everything American Christianity celebrates about achievement. And I know it's uncomfortable, but here's what I hope you're feeling right now. Not guilt, but holy urgency. Your success isn't the problem. Using it as an excuse to stop reaching is. Starting today, do this one thing. Ask God, what's the one thing you've called me to that my comfort is preventing? Write down whatever comes to mind. Don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away. Just write it down and tell God, "I'm willing." Munroe said it best. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but life without purpose. And the second greatest tragedy is achieving success that has nothing to do with your purpose. Don't let your achievements become monuments to what could have been. Let them become launching pads for what's still possible. The world is desperately waiting for what only you can give, the 90% you haven't accessed yet. Subscribe to this channel to continue discovering how to unlock your God-given potential and live the kingdom life you were created for. Next week, we'll explore Munroe's framework for discovering your specific purpose, the practical steps that move you from confusion to clarity. Die empty, not successful and full of regret.